Okay, today we're diving into one of the most famous pieces of music ever written, Antonio Vivaldi's The Four Seasons. And I know what you're thinking. You've heard it a million times. But what if I told you it's been hiding a fascinating secret this whole time?
I mean, those melodies are just everywhere, right? You almost can't escape them. But here's the thing. Vivaldi wasn't just writing pretty tunes. He actually embedded a very specific story inside the music, a story that most of us have never actually heard.
So let's get into it. First, we've got to talk about just how massive this music has become. It's almost the poster child for classical music.
You know the drill. You're stuck on a customer service call. And what comes on? Yep, it's become this kind of generic classical wallpaper. It's nice, sure, but it's just there.
And advertisers love it. They use it to sell you everything from fancy cars to pasta sauce, trying to make things feel elegant or natural.
And don't even get me started on movie soundtracks. Now look, this is all a huge testament to how great the music is, but it's also created a bit of a problem. It's become so familiar that it's almost invisible. We hear it, but we've stopped really listening to it.
But here's where we get to the secret. This was never ever meant to be background music. Vivaldi was doing something truly revolutionary.
He was one of the true pioneers of what we call program music, and that's just a fancy term for instrumental music that's designed to do more than just sound good. It's supposed to paint a picture in your head or tell a story, all without a single word being sung. And the cool part is, he didn't leave you guessing. When he published The Four Seasons way back in 1725, he did something nobody was really doing. He basically included a user's guide, a moment-by-moment instruction manual for how to listen. He wrote a poem, a sonnet, for each of the four seasons, and then he literally dropped specific lines from the poems right into the musical score. He was telling the musicians and us, hey, you hear this part? That's the sound of birds singing. This bit right here? That's a babbling brook. It's incredible.
And it gets even cooler when you look at the full title of the collection it came from, The Contest Between Harmony and Invention. Now, that's not just some fancy poetic name. It was a mission statement. Vivaldi was saying, I'm putting the strict formal rules of music, that's harmony, up against the wild, creative imagination you need to copy nature, that's invention. It's a showdown.
Okay, so let's try it. Let's actually listen with Vivaldi's secret instructions in mind and see if we can hear this stuff. We'll start with the most famous one, Spring.
So you know the birdsong and the thunderstorm parts, but check this out. Listen to the slow second movement. That gorgeous violin solo you hear, that's a sleeping goat herd. But listen carefully underneath it, you'll hear this repeating kind of chunky ruff sound coming from the violas. That's his loyal dog barking in its sleep. I mean, come on. From there, the storytelling gets way more dramatic in summer. Honestly, this one is probably the most intense of the whole bunch. The last movement is this absolutely unbelievable thunderstorm. And it's not a gentle spring shower. This thing is violent and terrifying. The music captures the raw, destructive force of nature, what thinkers later on would call the sublime. This is nature as this awesome, overwhelming power that's way bigger than us.
All right, moving on to autumn. The mood shifts a bit. Now we're moving away from nature's power and more towards how people celebrate it.
Okay, this might be my favorite detail in the entire piece. So in the first movement, Vivaldi is describing a harvest festival. And as the party really gets going, the melody in the solo violin, which represents the peasants, starts to get sloppy. It stumbles, it trips, it kind of loses its way. It's a perfect musical picture of someone who's had a little too much wine to drink. It's hilarious.
And that brings us to the end of the year, to winter, which, if you ask me, is the most atmospheric and maybe the most brilliant of all four.
Just listen to how winter kicks off. There's no big, beautiful melody. Instead, you just get these harsh, fast, repeated notes from the orchestra. Vivaldi's note for this part? Shivering, frozen in the terrible winds. He's not just telling you it's cold, he's making you feel the shiver right in your bones. And what he does next is just genius because it perfectly captures that feeling of winter. After all that shivering, biting cold in the first movement, everything changes. The second movement becomes this warm, beautiful, flowing melody. The sonnet tells us exactly what this is. It's the feeling of sitting inside, warm and cozy by the fire, while the rain is tapping on the window outside. And he gives us one last amazing image in the finale. The solo violin is like an ice skater, gliding and spinning across a frozen pond. But you have to listen closely, because Vivaldi actually writes in these sudden, jarring notes. He even marks them in the score.
that are supposed to be the skaters slipping and falling right on the ice.
So you might be thinking, okay, cool details, but why does this really matter? Well, Vivaldi's big idea here didn't just stop in 1725. It kicked off a legacy that is still going strong today.
You can literally draw a straight line from what Vivaldi was doing to Beethoven's famous Pastoral Symphony, then through all those epic symphonic poems from the Romantic era, all the way to, well, to the music you hear in every single movie today.
Think about it. When a composer for a movie needs to make you feel a storm coming, or the peace of a beautiful landscape, or the chaos of a car chase, they're using the exact same playbook that Vivaldi helped write, using music to paint a picture, build an atmosphere, and tell a story that matches the action on screen.
So the next time you hear that super familiar melody, whether you're on hold, watching a movie, or maybe even at a concert, try to listen just a little closer. That whole story, it's been there the whole time, just waiting for you to hear it. The seasons will always come back, and so will this music. The only question is, will you hear it differently now?